December 31st, 2012. The Colby Poster Printing Company is running their final job. I am their last client. For 67 years, they've printed signs, posters, billboards, and show cards for a variety of clientele. I've somehow been lucky enough to witness all 3 generations of this family-run operation. My father first brought me there in the 1950s. He was in the specialty automotive business, and Colby was his printer of choice. I met Herbert Colby then. He'd been a front-running Los Angeles printer since the 1920s when he joined the union. At the end of the Second World War, he and his bride Zelda struck up on their own and started their own business. It was a modern type of joint on Pico Boulevard in Los Angeles. Herbert had come up printing circus broadsides and the like. These were huge, ornate posters hung on the sides of theaters. They were meant to catch the eye of people walking by. Children would lose themselves in ornate shadow detailing, gilt, filigree, dingbats, and overprinting. Colby specialized in letterpress printing. Inked impressions on paper, loose words, individual phrases, and illustrations that had remained essentially unchanged since Gutenberg had pioneered movable type. Herbert Colby could take a client's concept, print it, turn it around, and it would be posted on the street in a matter of hours. At the time, nothing could beat the speed and efficiency of letterpress printing. Herbert and Zelda started their business at a time of great change, in a city on the brink of the future, the autoscape. People are traveling at 65 miles an hour. Information needed to be conveyed quickly and efficiently. You had to see it on the run. Colby created that game. Swift graphic science was the essence of his trade. So he went to bigger words, brighter colors, catchier design motifs. The oldest Colby poster I have is from a Maddox Brothers gig in Bakersfield in 1951. You can already see this change happening. To say that Colby was entirely responsible for the streamlined style would be an exaggeration. It was happening everywhere. There was something unique about what Colby was doing, though. It was their use of color, their use of day-glo inks, those highly toxic tinctures that produce bright colors impossible to miss on a freeway off-ramp. Split fountain fades, vertical slashes, pink, white, and blue, Colby's signature tint, green, white, and red, popular for Spanish language jobs. When the reggae scene erupted in the 1970s, they added yellow in the middle. The principal concern was always the efficacy of the message. Could people read the poster? Did it get their attention? Typically, clients would come in and convey the details of the job verbally. Perhaps it'd be written on a napkin. Who, what, when, where, why, how much. It'd be up to the typesetter to turn these words into captivating advertising. When Herbert's son-in-law, Rouse Hinman, took over the business, he introduced a poly-coated stock that outperformed that of all competitors. I've taken down posters that have survived 3 years of desert exposure, and they still retain rich, luminous blacks, while the background colors had bleached away long ago. And there you have one of the great contradictions of Colby posters. They're built to last, yet at the same time, they're intended to be utterly disposable. They had a specific purpose, and that purpose being served, they were tossed in the trash. And that's how I came to use Colby posters for my own purposes. My father would have spare posters laying about, and I'd use them as paper, drawing on the backs, cutting them up, making collages out of them. Years later, after getting my own presses and printing for myself, I would continue to commission Colby to do designs for me. I'd put them up on poles out in the desert, off Route 66, never to be seen or heard from again. If you lived in Los Angeles, you got so used to seeing these little squares of color everywhere. They draw your attention to forgotten vistas and unlikely patches of grass fenced next to the freeways, to telephone poles, to dead-end street barriers. You would know that you weren't the first to appreciate a particular telephone pole. All of this leveled the playing field. The outdoors didn't just belong to Coca-Cola or Wells Fargo. Boxing bouts, rodeos, and reggae concerts had an equal opportunity to catch your eye. All of this inculcated a desire to leave marks of my own, ones that suited the city I lived in. Perhaps they would be mistaken as advertisements, certainly never as art. Other artists shared similar ambitions. Ed Ruscha made this poster in 1975. When Alan Ruppersberg discovered most of his class at UCLA had never heard of, much less read, Allen Ginsberg's Howl, Ruppersberg had it printed in its entirety on Colby posters. This was done phonetically to remind his readers to recite aloud and to preserve oral history. Colby posters were always text-based, and so attracted literary artists. An opportunity to write on the landscape, an unavoidable message in your path. As Jan Tumler says, to see it is to read it, and vice versa. But words were not Peter Coffin's concern. In 2008, he commissioned 80 custom background tints from Colby. He ordered specialty inks and came up with combinations that were unseen in the commercial vernacular. Alexis Smith, quoting Raymond Chandler, "Mine was the better punch, but it didn't win the wristwatch." In Tom Anderson's film Get Out of the Car, which showed Los Angeles street corners and vistas, he could not avoid seeing Colby's work. Eve Fowler quoting Gertrude Stein's Tender Buttons, "A spectacle and nothing strange." Modern American opinion. Callie Thornhill DeWitt. Catherine Andrews. Andy Beach. Scott Benzel. Anthony Burrell. Sam Durant. Eric Yunker. Daniel Joseph Martinez. Ewan McDonald. Jacob Cassay. Christopher Mischlig. Brian Rottinger. C.R. Stecyk III. For Colby, it wasn't about art, it was about printing, getting the job right, getting the job done on budget. It wasn't right, it wasn't wrong, it was the Colby way. So I found myself here at the press on December 31st. The print was called Adios. For some reason, it seemed to fit. I spent over half a century coming into the Colby Poster Printing Company, looking for excuses to continue printing with them. I liked the process of watching their press, and as I stood there with Herbert Colby's grandchildren on the final day, as the press was dragged down the street, none of us had any words. Did Herbert Colby start all this, or was it the circus printers before him? Or was it Gutenberg, or does any of it matter anymore? Does it matter that a computer can spit out anonymous replicas of words it does not understand? Is it any different to wrap a building in vinyl, emblazoned with slogans and pictures? Is that fundamentally different than putting a telephone pole poster up? The street corners will be adorned with other advertisements printed by other printers. Passing Angelinos will not recognize the difference. For me, the economy and simplicity of Colby was always a great thing. And I don't think Los Angeles street corners will ever look quite the same. Colby Poster Printing, Los Angeles, California. Family owned and run for 3 generations since 1948.